Hi, this is Darren from SimNation again. Just doing a quick recap video for the WWPF, which is our Draft Day Sports Pro Football 23 league. And of course, that's from Wolverine Studios. I highly recommend you checking them out. This is probably one of the best football games out there right now from a text-based simulation perspective. If you're interested in our league, we still have some really good teams open. We've got a lot of new owners. I have to say, this is probably one of the more competitive seasons I've seen so far. And I think that a lot of the new owners have brought that into this league. So definitely appreciate them and their time. And it's been a wild season so far. And of course, we're only into week 4. Week 4 is done. We're moving into week 5 today. But I'm just going to dive straight in and kind of talk about some things. I'll start with the state of the league and what's going on. You have the Steelers, of course, who are leading in the North. They're coming off a pretty big win against Tennessee, but they also beat the Jets previously. I'll talk a little bit about that in a different video I'm doing about how to defend against the pass. Uh, Baltimore's having a really good season as well. I mean, they lost a heartbreaker last game against Miami, um, which is Soa is a danger most weeks. But I kind of thought that Baltimore would beat Miami, so that one's a little bit of shock for me, and just gonna have to keep an eye on Soa and make sure that if I play him, that I'm not looking past him. But I mean, uh, Kevin's off to a great start so far with Baltimore, and it's great to have a person back there. BioEgo made a pretty big trade, Hill, in the last game. He got his first win of the season. He's starting a little bit slow, but you can kind of see why. He had to play Kev in the first week, Templar in the second week. By the way, Dallas is undefeated. New England is undefeated. So it's not like he's sucking. He's got really high quality of opponents. He gets Udo next week. Prince. I mean, it's just not going to stop for him. This is for a team that's not a number one. Uh, and number ones, of course, play number ones. Number twos play number twos. Number threes play number threes. Number fours play number fours. When they're outside of their division, this is a jacked schedule. And plus, he gets Oakland. That's just never fun. But we'll talk a little bit more about Cleveland in a minute. So this is kind of how I would have pictured it. Is probably Pittsburgh up at the top, Baltimore second, Cleveland third. Cincinnati is on CPU. I would say that if you're interested in this league, Cincinnati is a great team to take. Probably one of the bigger shocks so far this year, and probably not a shock to Rick, because Rick knows how he can coach. Is Rick is one of our new coaches, and he's off to a really good start um, with the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to probably have some issues. I think he traded for Luna, if I remember correctly, or he may have already had Luna. But he's off to a very fast start with the Colts. JP's off to a fast start with the Texans. JP, of course, made that monster deal with DP uh, to get all of his picks and translated that into a bunch of pretty quality people. He lost to Prince. That's nothing to be upset about. Prince is a really good coach, but he has had a pretty good, strong start. He gets Seattle. That's a game he should win. Week 6, and then 6 and 7 is just that's brutal. Is the Jets and the Patriots because both of them are having really strong seasons. The Jets are someone I like to win the AFC, as are the Patriots. They're both really quality teams. Starfinder's had an up and down season so far. Of course, he lost that last game to the Browns, but I mean, he did beat San Diego. He lost to JP, and the Bills is a game he should win. Dolphins, it all depends on how So is feeling. But by the next time we recap, he won't have played the Jets yet, but that'll be his next game. Uh, So again, these two are kind of trending the way I thought it would be, with Pittsburgh at top, Indianapolis or Houston at the top. The East is exactly kind of how I thought it would be, is that New England and New York would be up at the top. So Miami's doing a little bit better than I thought he would. New England, I think, is just a really solid team this year under Shark. He's beat the Green Bay Packers, who are a pretty decent team out of the North. He hasn't really been tested. He'll be tested this week with Detroit, and really won't have his next test until he gets to uh, JP and Rick. Um, but again, he's doing it behind Hicks. Hicks is just having a phenomenal season so far. And to think that some people are trying to trade for Hicks. The Jets knocked off Oakland. That's enough for a season, and that's a great way to bounce back after losing a heartbreaker to the Steelers. But they've knocked off two quality teams already and lost to a third. The big news here, of course, is Spriggs is hurt again, which will send DP into a little bit of a tailspin, because this happens almost every season. Spriggs, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But every year he gets hurt, and I was actually shocked he got out of the Pittsburgh game not hurt. And then, of course, Peter said, well, you're not making it much farther, and knocked him out. So they'll figure out what to do. They have some good quality backups. And again, with that receiver core, you probably could stick almost anyone in there. Bryant had a huge game in the Oakland game, and we'll talk about that in a second. Uh, so yeah, off to a really great start. Um, Oakland, you don't often see Peter with two losses, but like this is the second season in a row. Now the caveat with Peter is once he gets his feet under him, he is going to kick the living shit out of you. He is that type of coach. I think one of the problems he's running into is injuries. Because if you look at it, losing Denham's a pretty big deal. Foster's a big deal too. Ramey's a big deal because he just signed Ramey, if I'm not mistaken, this offseason. Or he traded for him, one of the two. But uh, he's having some injury issues. But I mean, he lost both of his games by like 7 in shootouts. But he beat Prince, lost Invisible Witness, lost to DP. And if you look at this game, I mean, it was really the Jets just came back. He had the game in hand, and the Jets, with that really, really fast offense, were able to come back and beat them. Spriggs, of course, went out early, but then Stafford came in and led the game winning drives. And like I said, that receiving core is just phenomenal. Raynor got a start. Of course, Denham's hurt. Raynor is the GOAT. Uh, and he probably gave Peter no reason to think that Raynor may not start the rest of the way. The big news here was that DP managed to keep Leonard in check. And then just, yeah, the Jets managed to burn the clock essentially. So this was a little bit of a shock to me. I didn't expect to see the Jets win this one, but they did. So DP's probably like, stop doubting me. Uh, but if you're going to get Oakland, get them early in the season. Don't get them later in the season, because by later in the season, Peter really has his eye on the prize. Kansas City's another one of those teams that if you want to join the league and take. They're a really strong team, and I would highly recommend it. Prince is Prince lost a heartbreaker, but he's starting to bounce back and get his feet under him. He did beat the Texans, lost to the Dolphins. Lavelle is the guy to watch, though. He's a really good quarterback. And then Alt Hobben is coming in at 1-2. Don't read into this. He's new to the league. He's getting his feet under him, and I'm pretty confident he's going to make some pretty large moves. But again, the West is always Oakland's to lose. It's not like it's kind of like the North has been traditionally with Pittsburgh. Although Kev will have a lot to say about that. But really, the two wide open conference divisions right now is the South and the East, with New England, New York, Indianapolis, Houston, and actually Jacksonville. If we switch over to the NFC, DWK is doing a great job with the Packers. He took them over. I don't even think he took them over after the season had begun. So his one loss is to New England again, who are undefeated, and that is a really, really strong squad. He beat Udo, so he's off to a really good start. Seaton is a guy to keep an eye on. He's having a really strong year for the Packers. Um, Pops is at Detroit. They're swinging back and forth. I expect them to be there near the end of the season, but right now it's looking like DWK may run away with it. But this one's a hard thing to choose because you have three really good coaches, Pops at Detroit and Rick Sullivan at Minnesota. And sometimes I'll differentiate because I have two Ricks in the league. So Carolina, Invisible Witness is off to a great start. Can't say enough about that. He has great energy, and I'm just gonna say it. He is a pretty phenomenal coach. If you look at them, they've already knocked off Oakland. They knocked off Minnesota. They lost to Stewart, who that's he's a good coach. So even though the 49ers are having a down year, and a lot of this is Zelensky, who was a former top pick in the draft. Just doing a phenomenal job with Carolina so far this year. So hats off to you, Invisible. Um, and then this is Steve, who he'll get it in order. Atlanta had a lot of problems, and he took them over, I think, again after the season had started. So he didn't have a chance to fix those problems before the season started. But I give him some time. I think he will. Dallas continues to impress. This is Templar. He's one of our German owners, along with Althaben at San Diego, in Udo at Washington. He is just doing a phenomenal job with the Cowboys. Now, some would argue that part of that is because Gary's no longer at Philadelphia. I don't know that that's entirely the case. I mean, he's you look at this. He's beaten Don. He's beaten Bio. He's beaten Pops. Now, that's a CPU team. If he beats Kev and then beats Steve, he's for real. And you're going to have to really watch closely the Cowboys. They are just having a really good season. James Martin is a good quarterback, but he's doing it like Pittsburgh is on defense. I hate the name Larry Brown. It's just a Pittsburgh thing. Um, but I think he's the threat right now in the NFC along with Green Bay and Carolina for the NFC Championship game. Udo is having a solid season at Washington. Cable, 2 wins in a row. He started the season and it looked down like he wasn't going to be able to do it. Now again, you think about it, he's playing. There we go. He was playing Udo in his first game ever of this season, which that's always hard for the first game of the season to. It's his second season, I think, here in the league, but to get Udo in your first game where you haven't really played him before, and I think, well, let me backtrack. He has played him before, but to get Udo in the first game, anytime you get a quality coach in the first game, it's hard. Your second game is against Pittsburgh and me, and then you get Chicago and Arizona. He should be able to translate Cincinnati, Tampa Bay into 2 more wins, so he could be 4-2 the next time we talk. And of course, he's the one that's had the phenomenal draft. He drafted a lot of good components for his team. Thomas Allen, I think, is starting to really play for him. His offense isn't anything to write home about yet, but I think he's starting to get his feet under him, and I think he's going to kind of challenge a little bit for a playoff spot. The Eagles are a little bit further down than I thought that they would be, but Don's transforming that team into what he wants. So I, I I think this may be an off season for him, and then I expect him to bounce back. Uh, the only real human team in the West is San Francisco, and that's Stewart. He's having a down year for him. I do expect him to turn it around and be able to put it all together. Arizona was just a crap loss, but I mean, he beat Tennessee and he beat Invisible. He's the only person to do that so far. And then lost to Don. And losing to Don is not a kiss of death. Don is a good coach. I probably wish this Farmer would play better. Farmer's having kind of an up and down season. But if we take a look at the league leaders, some of this isn't going to be too much of a shock. Spriggs is the leader in passing yards. He won't be there by the next time we talk because he's injured. Probably Lavelle would be up there. Passing touchdowns wise, SCHAEFFER's having a really good season out of New Orleans. But again, Spriggs is up there. Just curious about, yeah. I thought I recognized the name. Yeah, he was picked out of Carolina. He's a really good quarterback. New Orleans, it's a CPU team, and CPU doesn't really do any justice for a lot of quarterbacks. The one I'm a little excited about, and we talked about this last night on the podcast, is Ronald McCulloch. He was the legendary quarterback out of Central Florida who was picked in the fifth round. He dropped pretty drastically, but Starfinder was having some success with him. That is a really good passing percentage still. And again, he's not a bad quarterback. It's just he got nerfed. But this is a guy I would keep an eye on. Cable kind of wishes that he still had him this year because Central Florida is having a little bit of a down year, and we were commenting on that last night about how that was a surprise to us. But it's not much a surprise when you see how he's doing in the pros. Rushing yards, Lackey right now is the leading rusher. There's a lot of different people here. Lackey's probably one of the people who would be in the running for the Rookie of the Year on the offensive side of the ball if I would actually give him the ball near the end zone. Um, so this may hold for a while because I am going to run the hell out of him. But bear in mind, I think Hicks actually has more yards per game than Lackey does because Lackey has a game up on him. And then, of course, you see Terrell Bryant, who was the person that DP traded everybody for to get. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how his season goes. It was a bold move. I think so far it's working out for him, though. And then rushing touchdowns, of course, Hillman, who is a longtime running back at Cleveland, is up there. Receiving yards, this doesn't shock me. Roberts is having just a phenomenal year. Um, and then you have some of the normal culprits in here. Michael Brooks is a guy to keep an eye on out of Oakland. Once he starts getting going, Oakland will, one, have success, but two, uh, he definitely is going to rack up some yards. Keysor is a guy who I like a lot. He's been in the league for quite some time. He was at Seattle. I actually was going to try to trade for him at one time. Um, from a sack perspective, Hickson is the leader, but he's not going to be. He's hurt. But Baines is a defensive tackle who's having a really good year. Sosa is off to a good, strong start, too. Um, I'm kind of shocked I don't see an Oakland person here. Beltran. It's still early in the year. They'll start racking it up. From an interception perspective, Swafford is not a shock to me. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Faison's a little bit of a shock as a linebacker, but probably if I looked at him, it wouldn't be too much of a shock. So if we go team by team, just real quick, and I'm only going to focus on the human teams, by the way. Um, again, Atlanta off to a pretty brutal start. The schedule didn't really help them. They got Alt Hobbin and then they got Pops. Uh, I don't think Atlanta's going to have a great season this year, mostly just because they have a pretty hard schedule. I mean, you got Denver, Dallas, New York, uh, Don, you have Peter at Oakland. It's just going to be really, really hard to turn it around. And we talked during the draft, they had some really pronounced issues that were made worse by the draft. And the cap status isn't helping them. They're right at cap. Kev is off to a good start. He's showing himself as a really good coach. He's doing the same in SCFL, by the way, with Texas. So that's why I was a little bit shocked by the loss to Miami. He gets Dallas tonight. That is going to probably be the game of the week in my eyes. And then, of course, not getting much help here. He gets Dallas and then follows it up with a road trip to Peter at Oakland. Really, the big games for him this year are going to be the Dallas game, the Oakland game, and then really the Pittsburgh game. If he's going to really compete for a playoff spot as well as Houston. He's got to win those games. Pittsburgh to win the division. And it should be a really good rivalry that I think is going to start. Wilmer Alvarez was, of course, one of the top picks this last draft, and he's having a phenomenal season so far. Um, Carolina, we talked about a visible witness with Zelensky. If we look at Zelensky, I mean, this guy's a stud. Uh, he's been a stud since he's been in the league. He's even more of a stud now that he's got a good coach and invisible witness. I mean, one interception on 109 attempts. That's pretty phenomenal. Andrade's having a really good season. So, yeah, I think he has a good shot with that schedule of really, one, winning his division and two, potentially clinching a top seed. Bio, the thing on Bio is once he gets going, he's going to be hard to stop. Bio should be able to compete against Udo with Washington. The Denver game's going to be a little bit hard for him. All Tobin, he should be able to compete in that. He's probably not going to beat Peedle. But he can actually get into a competitive stance for a playoff spot, which is probably what his goal is this year. The key here is Watson's got to have a good season. He traded away his backup quarterback uh, in a trade just recently. So, but Watson's a good quarterback, so I got some confidence that he has a shot at the playoffs if he can win those key games I just mentioned. Dallas again, they have a pretty favorable schedule actually. So it's one of the reasons why I think Dallas may actually seize the top seed. Is because their schedule is such that they don't play some of the bigger, heavier weights on the AFC side. I mean, they have Baltimore and they have Pittsburgh, um, but outside of that, it's a favorable schedule for him. And I think Templar's going to make the most of it. His defense is just lights out this year. He's doing a great job on the defensive front. Um, so I really think that you're going to see him go deep into the playoffs, if not make it to the championship game. Denver, again, he lost Peter in week one, lost Soa in week four. The week four is probably a little bit of shock to him, but Soa's been getting people this year, so just have to watch out for that. This is an offensive team. They don't really play defense. So Lavelle, and then they just have a nasty group of wide receivers. Don't sleep on Grill, though. So if you're playing them, you got to figure out how to stop a balanced attack. And Prince is really good at it, especially if he's uploading. He will compete in almost every single game. They can relatively easily make the playoffs. They have a pretty favorable schedule. Pops, he wasn't uploading. He may have actually uploaded this last time. When Pops is uploading, he's one of the best in the league. You're gonna have a hard time beating him. His offense and defense are not doing all that well, but again, I think that's because he wasn't uploading. But again, he's got New England this week. The schedule is still favorable to him for him to make a run, but he's going to have to win his NFC North games to make the playoffs. Right now, he's looking in at the playoffs because of some of the other stronger teams out there. But I'm pretty confident he can make a run and make the playoffs. I don't think he's going to win the division. I think that DWK is putting together a really solid season. And I don't think he'll be one of the top seeds because I think that's really going to be between Green Bay, Carolina, and definitely Dallas. And we were just talking about DWK. He lost to Shark. If you're going to lose to a team in the early weeks, that's the team to lose to because it doesn't impact you in your division. He's already beat the Bills. He knocked off Udo. He knocked off New Orleans. This is a big game this week for Green Bay against really what is one of the AFC powerhouses. His schedule is a little bit less favorable in some regards because he gets the dreaded AFC East. And it'll get easier, but I still got Miami, who's a tough get. He's got San Francisco, who's Stewart, that's a tough get, and then he's got the Jets. So if he can just lose maybe one or two of those games and win the rest, he should be in a good spot to grab a top seed. We talked about JP. JP's having a really good season. He lost to Prince. That's not a big loss. He has a favorable schedule again. So I do like his ability to make the playoffs, and I think he will. Colby's someone to keep an eye on. He has the best rushing uh, offense in the league right now, and if we look at that real quick, um, you'll see really quick is Colby and Olsen. Olsen is someone that a lot of us have been high on for a while. You can see why. He's had a really good career so far. I think Colby's a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's a rookie, 7th round or so. I mean, that's pretty solid. That's a really solid 7th rounder out of North Carolina. So he's definitely doing a great job with getting them competitive. And again, he has a good path to the playoffs. Rick has a good path to winning the division. Um, Again, the schedule is pretty favorable to him as well. Uh, we'll see how he does against San Francisco. If he gets past San Francisco, he's got a really good chance of making some noise. But he still does have New England and New York on that schedule. Plus, he's got to win out against Houston and Jacksonville. Um, but again, he's doing it through the air, whereas JP's doing it on the ground. So it'll be interesting if Luna stays healthy. I think that he would do well. And of course, Lab is having a really good season. He was a #1 draft pick. He was arguably the first or second best linebacker in last draft. So great job there, Rick. Starfinder is having a good season as well for a first-year coach. McCulloch is a big reason for that. As you can see, he's also doing it with defense, um, with uh, being able to stop the other team and then let McCulloch win games for him. So I am excited about this. I think also he has another. If it helps if I don't keep, I gotta fix that. But it helps that he also has a couple pretty good running backs. Kong is a good running back, but Cheatham is seeing most of the action. I'll have to go back and look because I think some of these running backs I actually talked trash about during the draft. Uh, Soa is a really good coach. Losing to New York is not a big deal. They beat most teams. He did beat Kevin and he beat Prince. That's 2 back-to-back wins. That's pretty good. He's doing it mostly with his passing game. Tan is a good running back, but Locklear is a really good quarterback, and I think that he's also accumulating picks again for the draft. Minnesota's is kind of up and down, but Rick is one of those teams I expect to be in the playoff. Taft, of course, is having a really good season so far. He's the rookie out of NC State. I think Enos is also another rookie. Rick drafted a lot of running backs this last draft. So Taft and Enos are both like a strong 1-2 punch. They're having great seasons, both in contention for Rookie of the Year. New England, Shark had a bye. I think that's the only way you're going to stop Shark right now is to have a bye week. He gets Detroit. Tennessee, even though 0-4 is a tough get, but really his season's going to be defined largely by, and this is a pretty brutal schedule, by the way. He doesn't get Pittsburgh, but he does. He got Baltimore, and he did get Pittsburgh in the preseason, but I'm sorry, he doesn't get Baltimore, but he gets the NFC North and he gets the AFC South. So AFC South is a lot more competitive than it's been in previous years. So he gets JP, gets Rick, gets the other Rick in the North, and he's just got to win his division games against the Jets and the Dolphins, and then he's one of those that will be competing for the top seed or top 2 seed. It's pretty much a given. I think he's going to be in the playoffs unless something really, really strange happens to Hicks. And we mentioned Hicks before. This is a phenomenal running back. He's one of my favorites. He's just I mean, he's been in the league for 3 seasons, and he's already off to the races again to potentially having a really, really special season. So I know a lot of people keep trying to trade to get him, and you can see why. Cable, again, we talked about Cable a couple times. He started slow, but now he's picking up steam. He's got the type of schedule that if he can win at least against two of his division opponents, like if he can take games from the Redskin, or take a game from the Redskin, take a game from Cowboys, win both of the Eagle games, he should be able to make the playoffs. And this is a team to watch because they've historically been bad. And he's starting to get him on the right path. He had a really good draft, and I think that set him up for the future. The big news here is the Jets are just the Jets. They're really, really strong. The one loss is to Pittsburgh. I'll do a video on that because I did a special defense just for DP. He didn't upload, which I think is one of the reasons why he lost. If he had uploaded, it may have been a different thing. But the big news here is he lost Spriggs. This is a normal thing for him, so he should be used to it by now. And also, Spriggs is probably in the last part of his career. And as you can see, he's 33 years old. He's passed for over 43,000 yards, 400 touchdowns. This guy's a GOAT. And he's a legend, which is something pretty special. I know that I was going to trade him Phillips, who's the quarterback at Pittsburgh, but he opted to stay with Donnell Henderson. And I think it's Rex Stafford is his backup. He's got some good backups, and Bryant, I think, has the potential to be special. He better be with all the things that we're giving away to get him. He's got a good schedule. This where he places in the AFC playoff race, he will make the playoffs. Is going to largely come down to his head-to-head against Shark at New England, and not losing to SOA, which he already crushed SOA in week 1. Peter, again, he lost to two quality teams, which for Peter is a little disconcerting because he's used to not losing. His defense is not playing well at all this year, and I don't know if that's age or if that's injury, but his offense is its normal potent self. So what I will say is if you're going to get your licks in on Peter, you need to get him in now. Because once he gets healthy and he gets the defense figured out, he is just going to start rolling. I'm just hoping he doesn't figure it out before week 7. But again, he will make the playoffs. Once he's in the playoffs, he changes into a different gear. And candidly, I won't be shocked if we're talking about him winning the conference, winning the championship again. Just to give you context, right, on Peter, and I'm going to drive his ego a little bit. You don't often see this. Just the sheer number of league championships that he's won. He's been in the championship game every single time since 2038. Just a phenomenal coach. He lost to Gary Hill, and then the last time that he really lost a big one was in 2035. This is a guy who he will figure it out. He'll get rolling, and once he gets rolling, very few teams are going to stop him. So I know Kevin and I are both wanting him not to figure it out before these two matchups. And I think once he gets Denham back, I think he'll be good. But the question is, do you bring Denham back as the starter, or do you let Reynolds just do his thing and let him roll? Reynolds is a special quarterback. Philadelphia, again, this is a transition year for Philadelphia as they are in year 2 of a new coach. Don will figure it out. He started 0-3, but again, 2 of those 3 losses were against really quality teams. He did beat a quality team in San Francisco. We'll see how he does this week in the Battle of Pennsylvania against Pittsburgh. But Libby is someone to keep an eye on, but I do expect him to bounce back. Pittsburgh is off to a really strong start, but again, outside of the Jets, they really haven't played anybody. And they're doing it with defense and running. Part of that is I'm starting to have a lot of injuries. Both of my guards are out, my starting guards, so I'm playing backups at this point. Hickson is a big loss for them, but as you can see, they're running the ball. The passing game's not working quite well right now. but their defense is the reason why they're winning. And a large part of that is they really have a good defense that's been built up over time with speed. We'll talk about that in a future podcast. Alt Haben, who's one of our German coaches, uh, he's I think he's going to put it together. I think one of the challenges he had is he's new to the league. Dropping into the AFC West is a hard division to drop into as a new coach. We talk about the AFC South with all the new coaches there and how well they're doing, but they're all new coaches. When you drop into a league with Prince and Peter, it's a little bit harder. And also, San Diego had some issues because they were being neglected near the end, and we talked about that during the draft. Is there were some needs that they had that they really didn't um, fill, but there were a lot of holes that Althaven had to fill. I think he can string together a series of wins and make the playoffs, but he's got to beat Denver, he's got to beat Oakland, and he has to split the series with them and then beat Kansas City and then take out the AFC North opponents that he has. Maybe won't beat Pittsburgh, but or Baltimore, but if he can win out the rest of his games outside of that, he has a chance at the playoffs. I expect Stewart to be winning here shortly. He's got a brutal schedule, honestly. Now, Arizona, it's kind of a laughable loss, but Tennessee's a much better team than their record is. He lost to Carolina. We've talked about Carolina. He beat Carolina, which tells me that he's going to be there in the playoffs. Uh, he lost to Philadelphia. He gets Rick. This could be a loss. He gets DWK. That could be a loss. But once he gets past week 8, I think he's got smooth sailing. The big game will be, of course, Minnesota. And then Udo brings up the last team. Washington has been up and down. Again, you can make the argument that they play two really good teams, Baltimore and Green Bay. I do like Udo to make it to the playoffs. He is a just phenomenal coach. Kiesel, we talked about him. He's having a really good year. Udo knows how to play defense, especially pass defense. If he can keep Rose healthy and keep Kiesel healthy, I think he's there. So that's kind of the recap. If you're interested in joining, we do have some really quality teams still up for grabs. I think that by the next time we talk, uh, I think we'll probably have a better idea who's going to win the North. We'll see if Peter's bouncing back in the West, because Peter will at least have played, I think, Baltimore. Probably, yeah, he will have played Pittsburgh, I think, by then as well, and we'll have a good idea. The East is really New England and New York. We'll have a better idea of how the injury to Spriggs is going to hurt New York. We'll see if there's going to be any differentiation in this race. Right now, Rick definitely has it, but JP's right there, so is Starfinder. We'll have an idea of how good Kev really is at Baltimore because he will have played some really strong opponents by then. I think we're going to find out that he's a really good coach. DWK, we'll see if he can continue his winning ways or if Pops is going to start surging, and also if Rick Sullivan's going to start surging. We'll see if Carolina is continuing its march with invisible witness. I think that's going to happen, by the way. See if Dallas is still undefeated. There's a strong chance that they will be. Um, and then we'll see if Udo can close some ground as well as Cable. And then we'll see if Stewart bounces back. So that's really the narratives out there. If you like this video, let me know. If you want me to cover something specific, I am intending to release videos this week around game planning for this game, as well as talking about pass defense. Because I did something really weird with Pittsburgh against the Jets, which may translate if you're looking to try to stop the Jets. Because if you notice, Spriggs still had a big game. It's just I kept him out of the end zone. Again, in all fairness to DP, he didn't upload. But what I did is I changed up some things on my defense, and I did some things I don't normally do on defense. Like I'm not a big fan of the 3-3-5. I tend to be more of a dime and nickel package person when I'm blocking the pass, but as you can see, I started to run 3-3-5 and quarter defenses. Now, Peter is big, I think, on both of those defenses, and he does a phenomenal job, but I specifically game planned to take out one is to put a lot of pressure on Spriggs, which I think I was largely successful with that, if I remember correctly, because I think I sacked him like 5 times. Um, but and then the second thing was Pittsburgh's been quietly accumulating over the years some really fast cornerbacks, and that helped me in that game because I could keep up with them with the speed. Like Riley is someone I drafted. I think I drafted Fiora as well. Flores is a pickup, so is Huey Hardaway. But as you can see, I got them to be a lot faster and then put my agility people on the faster wide receivers. And that definitely helped, as well as I got the secondary faster because Heller was in actually, but I parked Taylor and put Meadows in, who is a fast or strong safety. So I played the pass, and thankfully he didn't run the ball because if he had run the ball, I think I would have been hurting. But I'll do a video on that pass defense. I saved it so I can explain what I was thinking and why. But I am overall going to do a more broader video on game planning. Caveat here is the master of game planning is Peter. I'm good at it, but I'm more good at the defensive game planning than I am at the offensive game planning. Which is funny because if you think about SNCFL with the college football game, uh, I'm good at both of them. I've struggled a little bit with the pro game, much more than the college game. So that's it for now. If you like this video, let me know. If there's a topic you want me to talk about, let me know. Thank you for your time this morning and have a great day. And if you're interested in joining, I'll put the links in the video. Thanks.